Hello, I'm Nancy Candia, the Director of Yoga Impact. Yoga Impact started in Boulder, Colorado in 2009. At the time, I was teaching at the Boulder County Jail. I was teaching at the domestic violence shelter in Boulder, Colorado, and working with at-risk youth. The year and a half that I worked at the domestic violence shelter, I met so many women, all different demographics, those who had been abused in relationships and been in marriages for many years and finally got out of it, those that were just with a partner, whether it was male or female, people who were transitioning in a gender transition situation, and everyone just needed some time to breathe and to be at peace. And I did a lot of one-on-one work with people so I could really help address where they were at and what would be useful to them. I just remember working with one woman and we couldn't figure out any yoga. She was coming down from some kind of drug abuse and maybe some mental health challenges too. And so we just went in the kitchen together and I showed her where the chamomile tea was and made her a cup of tea. And we just sat and smiled at each other for a little bit. Sometimes I feel like I've been doing yoga for so long that when I work with somebody who's at that really beginner level, it really helps me remember the deep connection that you have to yourself after you've worked with your body a little bit, worked with your breath, and had a little quiet time. The women in the jail oftentimes were so sad. They were missing their children and their families, and they had known that whatever they did to get there was their own issue, and they all felt really bad about the impact it was having on their families. And so during a yoga class we could get a little bit of respite from those feelings. A lot of times we try and laugh because the poses were hard or because they were so silly. But just being real with each other and opening up the door for just feeling at a little deeper level. Sometimes the women were hard on each other when one of them would cry, and I would just say, it's just an energy. Tears are just an energy, and sometimes they're a release. I remember one little boy at the at-risk youth program. Actually, he was young. He was more like a child. And we did a guided meditation about going to the beach at the end of class. And he sat up and he said, "I've never felt so relaxed." After moving to New Jersey, we set up programs in the northern New Jersey area, in the jail here, in the homeless shelter, which was a shelter. It's kind of interesting where families rotated week to week to a different church, and so the family would pick up and move every week to a different location, and sometimes they had rooms to themselves, and sometimes their rooms, which could have been with their 3 children, were just partitioned with sheets. So the yoga that we were providing became something they could look forward to consistently. And then we provided children's yoga at the same time. We're also working with the Sioux Falls Center here in New Jersey, and we provided different chair yoga classes, children's yoga classes, and we're currently hosting both diabetes yoga class and yoga for cancer survivors who speak Spanish. Sometimes we have a translator, and sometimes we just muddle through that in a good way. I've worked at the VA hospital on a volunteer basis in the women's trauma unit. And so we're just trying to look out, inviting yoga teachers and yoga studios to open your doors and look out and say, who's in your neighborhood that could use some more help, to help bring more diversity to yoga. In the past year, it feels like we've really kind of moved toward our mission that we can really focus on, and that is to bring yoga teacher trainings into populations that training isn't accessible. And as I've worked in all sorts of different institutions, what I've seen is that people love taking yoga, whether they're in a rehab or some kind of recovery situation, but then they go out and to their communities and they're not sure where to take yoga. So one of the things that we're working on is, one, developing yoga teacher trainings to take in urban and more rural situations where people don't have access to them, and training yoga teachers to work with people to beyond, people who are already fit, beyond exercise. We're doing all sorts of trainings, a diversity training, a trauma trainings that we provide, chronic pain trainings, training people to be yoga therapists, and creating the opportunities for these trainings so that more people have access to yoga. That's one of the ways our nonprofit's helping